India from Malaysia?
Almost about 6 hours, almost 6.
6 hours are nothing.
Yeah, I know it's nothing.
That's nothing.
Welcome everybody to the Asia Pacific call for this March 11th. And I am Carol Ray from Central Texas. And we are going to have ourselves an interesting evening tonight. I'm so glad to have everybody here. We were just talking about Sharmini's trip upcoming tomorrow, right? For
Yes.
You're going to India for the path session. And are you also doing Panchakarma?
Yeah, I'm doing it before the part session.
Oh, okay. Exciting. Awesome. Welcome, Cornelia, and happy birthday a day early. We're so excited to have that coming up and so grateful to have you in our lives and all of the seva that you do, the love that you show, the dedication. You're just, you inspire me, and I just hope you know how much you are loved and appreciated.
Yes, yes. Confirm, confirm.
Yes, indeed.
It's
So-
Cornelia. Happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.
Actually, it's my time today, right? So it's happy birthday, Cornelia.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Cornelia.
It's Saturday for me, right?
Yeah,
Right.
for me it's already the 12th, right?
That's right. Yeah, it is. Well, we're celebrating Cornelia's birthday today somewhere in the
Hey,
world.
yes.
On the other side of the world. That's so cool.
Why not? Why not?
Yes. So we're gonna take a few minutes to come from our busy brains into our hearts, as is our custom to do. And we are gonna invite you to do this with us as a way just to kind of get centered. And something I've been doing that seems to bring me some joy and peace is to cross your hands over your shoulders and to declare, I am at peace. I am at peace. Take a deep breath. Blow that out, and I am loved. I am love. And then you raise your arms out a little bit with your elbows to your side. I am at peace. I am loved. I am love. And then stretch your arms really far out. That really feels good on my shoulder. I am at peace. I am loved. And I am love. And then give yourself a hug. Yay. And then let's send some love to everybody out there who's watching this, who's feeling needing some love and light. And this is for you. From us to you with love. Because we're all about love here. We are so about love here. And let's do a few marmas. I'm going to pick on Aparna. How about Aparna, pick your favorite marma?
Okay, the present positivity one.
Perfect. Language of your
Ek.
choice.
Ek, do, तीन, चार, पाँच, छः.
Excellent. Jaina, favorite marma?
I'm gonna have to say this one. 7 fingers down,
Right arm, right?
right arm, 7 fingers down. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis.
Well, that one's so sore. That tendon is tight. Ow. Esther, do you have a favorite marma?
Let's do forgive and forget, left hand.
Oh, that's so good.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Perfect. How about you, Ralph? You have a favorite marma? No, you don't? How about ears? Can you do ears 6 times? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yep. There we go. Go. 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
excellent. Yay, Ralph. Cornelia, favorite Marma.
It's difficult. There are so many, but let's do the focus one here.
Oh, excellent.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yay, good job. Sharmini. Excellent. Third fingers together, palm in the front. Unmute yourself. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Thank you.
In this way?
Yeah, turn the other way. Robin Lee, can you unmute yourself and do this way?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That feels so good. I could just squeeze my head a while. How about you, Liz? Unmute yourself.
How does that happen all by itself? Oh, funny. Can everyone get to their feet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Most
There's,
of us.
there's under your big toe and just like one
Right or left?
right, big toe. And if you just press sort of one finger down from that first crease of your big toe, so you know the first crease, and one finger down. Does that make sense?
Can you show that? Exactly where? Okay, so
But
towards the
there's
foot,
that
yeah.
crease,
Okay,
but
yeah.
here
on
and
the
here,
foot.
and that is good for your lungs, and it helps clear your lungs.
Mhm.
So you can press that 6 times.
Excellent. That's a new one. I love it.
For something different.
Yes, yes, yes.
We hit nay kleta urba hamsa sita 6.
And what language was that?
Oh, Maltese.
Maltese. That might be a
Oh, we
first
have
for
never
us.
had that one. Maltese.
That's excellent. Mariette, do you have a Marma you would like to share?
You have to help me a little bit. I don't know any, but I can count.
Okay, how about at the base of the thumb from memory?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So is it with the right hand or the left hand?
That's on the left.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And what language is that?
Dutch.
Dutch. Oh, fun. That was very fun. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump into a little video, share some slides with you that I happened on, and then talk
Can I
about.
ask a question first?
Oh, sure.
Andrea, do you have a favorite Marma? Andrea, do you have a favorite Marma?
All of them, but in particular, the hi everyone, the memory, but I can't do it because I'm driving.
So how about in her honor? How about we do the fear one since we've already did the memory one? How
Okay.
about we do the fear one?
Wait, that's the fair one?
to release the fear. Isn't it right here?
Oh, I didn't know that. I need to use that. Okay, great.
Okay, so do you want to count?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yay.
Okay, so the subject tonight is something that came to me while I was looking up something for someone else, kind of led to one, kind of took a life of its own, and I got kind of excited about it, and I thought I would share it with you. And it's about Mahabhutas and the 5 elements and how they are called for through the death process. So it's a dark subject for some, uncomfortable for some, but I'm hoping that because we are students of Siddha Veda, that we have this knowledge that we can call on. And Siddha Veda is famous throughout history for providing care to people of all backgrounds, all religions. That's something that we're going to look at is what is the death view for different cultures and religions. So with that, I'm going to show you the slides that I saw that prompted this little direction for me. If I can share my screen successfully and we don't get blasted with a whole bunch of commercials. Theater mode. Okay.
Going deeper and deeper. Physically, you feel heavy when the earth element dissolves into water. And when water dissolves into fire, you find that the circulation begins to cease functioning. When fire dissolves into air, any feeling of warmth or growth begins to dissolve. And when air dissolves into space, you lose the last feeling of contact with the physical world. Finally, when space or consciousness dissolves into the central nadi, there is a sense of internal luminosity, an inner glow, when everything has become completely introverted. Death holds up an all-seeing mirror, the mirror of past actions to our eyes, in which the consequences of all our negative and positive actions are clearly seen, and there is a weighing of our past actions in the light of their consequences, the balance of which will determine the kind of existence or mental state we are being driven to enter. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. It is not dying. It is not dying. Lay down all thoughts. Surrender to the void. It is shining. It is shining.
Okay, that's the little piece that I saw. And this was talking about the elements. I noticed that these are our 5 basic elements that we study, going kind of in a reverse pattern from what we typically see them, starting with the earth dissolving into water. So that's our kapha element there, earth and water. And then water to fire, that's pitta. And then fire to air is vata, air to space is vata. So those, how it crosses the 5 elements with the 3 doshas. So that got me to thinking about how this pattern flows and what a natural progression it is through the doshas and the body functions. So the reason I'm kind of interested in this study is I used to be a chaplain's aide in a state hospital, and I attended to a lot of people going through the final process, and I've also been at family side holding their hands through the process, and sometimes strangers, sometimes family. And it's a beautiful process, but you have to get past the fear. You have to get past sometimes a queasy stomach, because it's not always the most comfortable process for your senses. But there's so much that we can bring to this by thinking about that person and where they are in the stages based on this dosha pattern, this 5 elements progression, and also thinking about their particular dosha. And we should be good enough at that where we can get to know someone even a little bit and have a good sense whether they're kapha, vata, or pitta. And based on that, have an approach to how we can best comfort them in our role as providing comfort during a difficult time. So if you've been around hospice very much, or palliative care, we've been through those a lot at my house. My daughter was in hospice 2 years from 18 to 20, and then she's been in palliative care 21, 22. So we had a lot of different people, and there's a lot of different skill sets in that. But I think this is a little unique approach that I'm hoping that you'll find it something that if you do ever have to find yourself in this position, it'll give you something to think about. So the kapha process, when you think about the kapha dosha, who can kind of give me, who can remember what the different parts of the body anatomy are that are related to the kapha dosha? Does anybody remember? Nose?
Lungs and nose.
Yes. Stomach?
Stomach is pitta, correct?
There's also stomach in kapha. There's a part of the brain function in kapha, and joints are really a big piece of that. So when you think about the lungs and this process, one of the things you're going to notice is respiration is difficult for somebody. It's hard for them to breathe. And kidneys, if somebody has diabetes, we know pretty quick that's a kapha symptom, right? That's where that diabetes is usually coming into kapha. So when the kidneys start to shut down, and we see things like edema, the fluid starts building up on people's ankles and in their feet, then those things are happening in that kapha stage. And as such, we can think about it in terms of that. So when we think of a kapha person, what are some of the traits of someone who's a dominant kapha dosha? Go for it, Ralph.
They can be kind of like semi-obese, heavy, very dull in terms of their movement and whatnot. I would say kind of lazy.
Slow.
Yeah.
Slow to react, slow to wake up. So sleeping a lot is very kapha. And so in this kapha stage, people are going to start sleeping more and sleeping more. And that's usually a good thing with the family. They're feeling like, okay, they're sleeping, they're not suffering if they're sleeping. Liz, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, yeah. And these are the kapha, and when it's out of balance. So these are the states of kapha not balanced.
That's right. That's right. The kapha, imbalance of kapha, and the kapha process as you're going through the 5 elements, right? Going from earth to water, and what that looks like on a physical side. So you can kind of maybe, be accustomed to looking at what the symptoms are, what you're seeing, what the timing is on that. So you have some kind of a idea and can gauge some of that. So at this point, when sleep is kind of dominant, you also are going to know the stomach is impacted and the appetite is very little. And one of the things that was new to me is that I always, did you have something you want to say, Maret?
Yes, I'm wondering, like you were just speaking about the diabetes and the kapha. Is it like for both diabetes type 1 and type 2, or is it different because type 1 is more like a born genetic disorder?
Liz, do you want to answer that?
It is a kapha situation in the diabetes because it's always working with the water element. So like with type 2 diabetes, that can be fixed through diet and lifestyle, but like with the type 1, that is a genetic thing. So yes, even though it's got the kapha element, it's more the type 2 diabetes that we can manage better just through our diet. Yeah.
So one of the things that I was really had a hard time with was the process of withholding water. When someone's going through this process, I wanted to give, someone water to drink, and I was told that's not a kind thing to do. It's not a good thing to do because the lungs aren't working. The water is going to cause them to choke and cough, and it's going to make them very uncomfortable. But ice chips, on the other hand, are something that you can give that help moisten the mouth and help alleviate, that some of that dryness. So it's a small thing, but it can make a big difference if you know that providing ice chips is a gentler way to respond to someone than, offering a glass of water. Probably one of the biggest things that we can do is to say, what do you want? How may I serve you? What is it that I can do that, that would be helpful to you? And try and, in our best way possible to keep our vibration up to a level that's very helpful in this situation. If you go in with fear and angst and crying and already grieving, that's going to lower the vibration overall. But if you can go in with an opportunity for seva and to hold that space, then that can be a huge comfort to the person who's going through the process. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, yes.
So to go in, conquering your fear, to go in, how may I be of service? What do you want? And it's going to be different, what people want. When you're kapha, you like structure. I need somebody to make these phone calls. I want to make sure somebody who, does this and does that, and take your notes for that person and read it back to them. What I understand you saying is you want someone to do these things on your behalf. Is that right? Do I understand you? But if it's a vata person, they may want to talk or sing, or, they have a different need than the kapha person. The pitta person is going to be a whole different thing as well. Their personality is very strong and strong emotions. Liz, did you have something to comment on that?
Oh, no.
Put your hand in.
It was making me think of my mother-in-law. I'd go in, and because she couldn't, at the stage of not being able to speak, I'd just go in with some oil and massage. We forget they need that.
Yes, that touch.
Of touch. Yes.
Right. Especially vata. They want touch, massaging their hands or feet.
Totally. The feet.
Yep.
The feet is a really beautiful one to do. And then it's almost like as though you're anointing them, just like Mary Magdalene did with Jesus. And for a lot of people, they've never had that done before. And that's really showing so much love. It's really putting love into them, and they really, really appreciate it.
Yes. So music is another thing that we can offer, and our dear friend Gary Malkin has a great CD. It's now 20 years old, called Graceful Passages, and there's different type of music based on a dosha. So somebody who's vata might like piano and harp and things of that nature, where the structured kapha person might like full orchestration or drums or something. And a Pitta person might enjoy things with lyrics that are visual, a lot of visualization. So knowing those doshas while you're trying to be of comfort can give you some other ideas of how better to meet their needs while these things are going on. I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any questions or comments so far. Yes, Sharmini, unmute yourself.
This brings back to my mother's passing away. It's like she was actually going through different phases. Now that we talk about it, because like for like a week before she passed away, she stopped eating. So I suppose she's like reducing on the kapha connection with earth. And then later on, it's like even the drinking was very difficult. So again, it's going down into the vata phase. And then of course, from the vata, she went off. So if now that we talk about all these different elements, it's very, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense. So one thing I always played was spiritual music in the background whenever she was at home, when she in her bedroom.
Yeah. My mom loved big band. That was her favorite type of music. I still listen to it and think of her often. Ralph, any comments so far?
I'm kind of trying to equate this to, I remember years ago, this Vietnamese friend and I were at this man's bedside when he was passing away. And he was unconscious. And you could kind of like feel that process of the elements leaving his body, ascending. And when it went flatline, he was just cold. But the Vietnamese friend of mine, she said like his soul has already left his body before his physical body expired. His soul was already floating. And we could kind of like feel his soul floating in the room, in the hospital room that he was in.
That must have been beautiful.
But their tradition is in Vietnam is anytime you are in the presence of someone that passes away, you have to wash every item of clothing that you have the minute you get home, everything that you have. Polish your shoes if you're wearing leather shoes, wash your sneakers, wash everything, and then take a bath in hot Epsom salt.
I think that's true with almost Eastern cultures.
Yeah.
It makes total sense too.
Yeah. But just to feel a person, because the nurse was saying, each one of us were holding his hand and you could just feel it. You just felt this energy. It was a strange energy.
Yeah, it's that coldness starts in the kapha phase. When it's usually their hands and arms will start to get cold first, and then as the legs can start to get cold, and then the vata person is already starts out cold, so they're the most likely to respond and want a warm towel with maybe a hint of lavender on it to make them more comfortable. And then as you transition from that kapha phase into that pitta phase, where might you see fire come into this process? What might trigger a little bit of fire in someone going through the dying process? Anybody have an idea? That's a thermometer. A lot of people's temperature will go up. And so somebody who wasn't sweating before, suddenly they're perspiring. That's going through that pitta phase. And this is a time where a cool cloth on the forehead, around the neck area might feel really good. But that fire, you might also see the skin change color. Skin is in pitta. Skin is the largest organ of the body. And so when the process is affecting skin, it's going to change colors. It might be blotchy or gray or get, really red, but that's following the kapha process. Is the skin will usually change somehow in form or color. Did that trigger something for you, Ralph?
I got a question because we didn't get a chance to put water from, we had some water from the Ganges to put in this gentleman's mouth before he passed away, but we didn't do it because there was a nurse present. But what is the purpose of putting water in a person that's transitioning? What's the purpose of putting water from the Ganges in their mouth?
I don't know. Does anybody else know? You're gonna have to research and get back to us. So Robin might have an idea.
Well, I just know that they consider it so holy, the water from the Ganges, that it's, that it might be like a sacrament that they're taking or something.
This gentleman wasn't Hindu. He wasn't, he was following a guru, but he was basically a Catholic. He grew up a Catholic.
Wow.
So, but he was Vietnamese.
No,
and
he was
Catholic?
an American. No, he was an American.
Okay.
The friend that was with me, we were taking care of all of his affairs and whatnot. She was Vietnamese.
So it sounds like she was doing something of comfort that came to her through her traditions.
Yeah.
For her friend.
Yeah.
Isn't there a tradition in some time in life in Catholicism where you do something with holy water? I don't know what it is because I'm not Catholic.
Sprinkling.
Okay.
Well, it's I know in Buddhism what they do is they administer a puwa when a person is beginning to make a transition. It's called like the transfer of consciousness, just before the soul leaves the body. It's very much like the Catholics do the last rites.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar.
So one other thing in pitta are eyes, the quality of the eyes. And if somebody's eyes are still open, they may stop blinking during the pitta phase, or they just may stay closed. But that's another one of those little marks along the line. And the other organs affected at pitta are the liver, the spleen, but the primary one is the skin for pitta. And then functions of vata. Anybody know the organs that are affected by vata? Brain, yeah, prana. And I know that's one of the later things to go. When my mom was passing, her oxygen started falling first, and then her heart rate started falling, and then her brain functions. You could see the brain functions, start to go down as well.
It slowly goes down.
Yeah, it slowly goes down with as
they're going. They're really going.
That's right. They're really going when that's happening.
Right, you can see it.
In her case, her heart was still beating because she had a pacemaker, and her husband and I held hands and said the Lord's Prayer with holding her hands. And then as we finished our prayer, they put a magnet on her heart to stop the pacemaker. So that was a difficult process, but I didn't know how that would work. How when you have a pacemaker like that and there's no brain function, there's no oxygen, then that's when they will stop the heart. This is also a time when you might see involuntary body functions in vata, where some people might start to have some spasms and those sort of things. And that's usually one of the very last things. And the absolute last breath, when the process is at its end, the body loses its functions and its fluids. And that can be difficult, uncomfortable. When I was holding my grandmother's hand, she bubbled at the mouth when the process was done and lost, control of her bladder and bowels. And I don't know how much that happens, for people, but it's certainly something. If you know about it and you can expect it and prepare for it, it makes it a little bit easier, when you know what's coming. But those are all vata functions of the body fluids, excretions, and those kinds of things. So
I don't know, mother didn't have much of those.
there's not much left in the body, right?
Yeah, she didn't have much left because she was not eating, and she wasn't doing much the last 5 days.
Did she start sleeping a lot more?
Yeah, she did. She did sleep a lot.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to get up at all. Well, one thing we do as Hindus is that once the person passes away, we bathe the body. It's like honoring the body and dress, like normal bathing. You shampoo the hair, you do everything. And then you honor them by wearing their best clothes. And then we put the body in the coffin, yeah.
I believe the Jewish tradition, is that the same, Esther?
Yeah, they do the same thing. It's cleansing, thorough body washing. And then Jewish tradition, you're buried in a simple pine box wrapped in a white shroud, is tradition. And not everybody follows tradition. So it goes from one extreme to the other, but traditionally and a white shroud, pine box, and typically you're buried within 24 hours of death because they don't do any embalming in Jewish funerals. So you can't delay a funeral for very long.
And that can be problematic during the Sabbath, right? A Jewish funeral home won't pick up.
That's only for the Orthodox.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Muslims are the same way. After a person passes away, they bathe the body, they wash the body, and they wrap it up in a white kind of a cloth.
Very similar traditions.
Yeah.
That last time I was in India, I was in Old Delhi, and it's a spice market area. Lots of people are on the streets selling spices and other goods. And we literally saw a procession of people carrying a body wrapped in white down the middle of the street for their cremation. So, and business just went on as usual all around. It was just like, if you didn't notice this body being carried, you wouldn't have seen it.
I was really shocked in Okinawa to see a death procession. I guess it was Shinto, but people cheered. There was a long procession. There were bright colored costumes. It was a celebration for sure, with the drumming and all of that going on. It was a celebration. And that was very unusual as an American, to see that new tradition. But a very interesting and colorful one. Because they believe you're going
Here
to
also they had the drums, right?
Say again?
They would have had music when you were taking the body.
No, we didn't, because it was, it was clearly an extremely impoverished.
Okay.
Carrying the body. So no, there was nothing, no music, no, it was just carrying the body. Yeah. So, Old Delhi's very poor. So it's not an easy area to be in.
Carol, can you put a link to that video that you showed and put that
Yeah,
in the chat?
I will. And I have a couple pages of notes that I'll send out to you. And I went through and listed some of the thoughts on death by the different religions. The one I had from the Dalai Lama is interesting. He says, he describes the process of death. As a Buddhist, I view death as a normal process, a reality that I accept will occur as long as I remain in this earthly existence. Knowing that I cannot escape it, I see no point in worrying about it. Thought that was pretty interesting. And this one's from the Cherokee, which is the largest Native American tribe in the US. As a culture, Cherokee Indians are very spiritual people that view death as a transition rather than an end. Services are usually conducted by a Cherokee shaman the day after death. The bodies are traditionally buried in the ground in the belief that they will provide nourishment to the earth. And in Hinduism, I had, I have the shloka from Gita in here too, which I won't try to say, but as we change clothes when it is no longer in a suitable condition, in the same way, the soul changes body. So that's kind of the Dr. Naram change in shirt kind of an idea, I believe. And then in Islam teaches there is a life after death, and this is known as akhira. In Islam, it is Allah who decides when a person dies, and most Muslims believe that when they die, they will stay in their graves until Yawm al-Din, the day of judgment. Or Jainism, Jains believe that the soul has always been there, that the soul cannot be destroyed, and that through the process of death, one transitions to a new body. The Jain tradition shows how we can move without attachment into death rather than clinging to life. And for Judaism, Judaism believes that every moment of life is precious and of infinite value. We do not consider pain or suffering as mitigating factors that obviate the sanctity or importance of life. Jews believe in the life after death, the immortality of the soul, and the physical resurrection of the body at a time in the future. And then Shaikhism, according to Shaikhism, death is a natural process, and only the physical body that dies, and the soul lives on through transmigration and reincarnation. For them, the purpose of life is to move closer to Wahaguru, the Sheikh name for God, and that death will help break the cycle of reincarnation. And the last one is Zoroastrian. Everyone alive on earth is a creation of God. The elements are the purest thing we have. To contaminate the elements, earth, fire, water, and air with any type of decaying matter is against the religion. So I have that in the notes. I'll send that along with the link to the video, and I'll put it in the Asia Pacific link. But any questions, comments?
Like for us, is I think in Hindus, I think when a person reaches a certain stage in their life, not has like the Swamijis and gurus, the great ones, they don't have reincarnation. They actually have gone to God already. And if anything, their dad has spirits to help or has transcendental masters to help us who have connection with them. So it's like Dr. Naram is like one good example. It's like he's acting like a transcendental master. Dan King is another one.
Yes.
So that's why they appear in people's dreams and thoughts and visions.
Right. They can be more places at once.
Yeah, they can be in multiple places at once because they are no longer held by body. They're spirit world.
I went through another process with my grandmother that was really beautiful. She had a blood clot in her brain, and she would lose consciousness, and then she would wake up and speak in tongues. Just, like she was speaking the language and making eye contact, but not understanding a word of it. And then she'd lose consciousness again. And then she woke up, she'd been out probably 12, 14 hours. And when she came to, she recognized, she said, Carol? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, where are the babies? And well, they weren't really babies at this point, but I said, they're home with their dad. And she said, oh, I just had the most beautiful dream. I was in a city that was covered in mother of pearl. The streets were in the mother of pearl. And it was milk and honey, so beautiful. Nobody was suffering. There was no pain. It was so beautiful. And my mother is there and my dad's there. I saw, and she just goes through the whole list of all of her friends and things that she saw. And then she said, I'm tired now. I'm going to go back to sleep. And she didn't die at that moment. I was really thinking she probably would, but she didn't. And when she came to the next round, she was blind, couldn't see because that blood clot, was affecting her vision. And she ended up surviving it. And she was a much kinder person when she went through that process. She made up with her sister-in-law that she'd been at war with for years. And it had a profound effect on her. She probably lived 2 years after that, but it was really an interesting process to watch as, the effects on her speech and her vision and her, this beautiful dream that she had. So I was really privileged to be able to do
She
that.
connected with the past lives. That's why she talked in tongues.
Yeah.
And then also, I think she had a near-death experience. That's why she saw her parents.
Definitely. Yes. Yes.
My mother also had a near-death experience when she had her first child. She died on the operating theater and she came back.
Oh yeah. I guess that's, something too that, to think of it, you want to hold out hope that people are going to get through this process, right? They can get down to that very, they can be really deep in the process and there can be a spontaneous healing. There's a lot of books about that are life after life. And you always, hold out hope that could be the case. So I guess, try to be, that we're prepared either way.
I used to have very, very intense conversations with a friend of mine from Tibet. Him and his sister had a store here in Santa Monica. And he was the one that educated me about rainbow bodies. How he says it's still going on. He says that any one of us have the possibility of doing that. What it is, you speak of the 5 elements, right? It's like a person like a monk or a higher spiritual master knows that it's time for him to transcend.
Yeah.
Go in a room and says, look, don't open the door for about 3 days. And when they open the door, it's just his clothes and his nails and hair, if he has hair, are there. His whole body has dematerialized up into the elements, into the universe.
Wow.
That's profound.
And he gave me, he didn't give me a book in the store. One time he wasn't there, Eugen wasn't there, but his sister was there. And I kept looking at this book and she looked at me, she says, that book is for you to read. So I bought the book. She says, if you don't have the money to get the book, I'll, pay me when you get the money. I had the money, I paid for the book. The whole book was about all of these monks and lamas and Rinpoches that had transitioned via rainbow body.
Wow.
And I think the last one that happened, one happened here in America. I think it happened in Massachusetts or one of those states there. It was a Tibetan lama who was teaching at one of the universities, and that's how he passed away.
Wow.
And just a rainbow appeared in the sky. A rainbow appears in the sky when someone does that.
My goodness, that's so awesome. I've not heard that. Anybody else? This is new information, rainbow bodies? Yeah. Cornelia, what's your thought? Unmute yourself, please, dear.
Well, I mean, I was listening to that and I was comparing to what you said, going through these phases, through the doshas kind of, or the elements in the final stages of one's lives. And I could definitely see that when my mom passed away, and how even the breathing got so slow towards the end that she would only breathe maybe 5 or 6 times per minute. And it was really kind of, and we were more or less waiting for her just to pass because it was the end. But she, in a sense, she just didn't want to go. We had the feeling. So my sister and myself decided to leave the room for a short while, just in order to give her the space in case she wanted to be alone, because I've heard that before, that some just don't want to be surrounded by somebody. So we gave her the space. So we went out into a little cafeteria, and for half an hour, when we came back, she was still alive. And so we sat again on both sides of her and holding her hands, and maybe another half an hour, then she took her last breath. But it was so beautiful to watch how, in a sense, how calm she was, and she just was no longer in pain, and how all of her, in a sense, how her functions just suddenly, it was really what you described, how the functions of the body had diminished over the last few days. And she was on palliative care, and there were some really young men that were actually taking care of her. And one day when we came, he told us it's most likely about 3 days, because they know the signs and how long it's going to take. And it was really exactly 3 days until she passed away. So it was astonishing that these young men had so much compassion and so much understanding of that process of going through these final stages. So for me, that was really beautiful to, even when we weren't in the with her, that we knew that she was in such good hands.
So I believe in the Jewish tradition, they do not allow people to be alone. Is that right?
Well, it's tradition that somebody, I mean, it's not, they don't allow people. That's
okay. That's the wrong way to say that.
Yeah, and I, you know, none of the death rituals are written down in any Jewish text. They've evolved and have been, I say, made up over time to sort of follow, you know, what the norm is of the day. You know, one of the things is after a body has died, that it not be left alone until it's buried.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't know what the purpose of that is at all. So, but I don't think, I haven't heard anything about not letting somebody be alone while they're dying. I think families tend to just, like any other group of people, families tend to want to be with their loved ones or their friends or whoever it might be. So I wouldn't ascribe it just to something Jewish.
Yeah, I totally get that.
But when I can say, like my father, even he was, my mom was with him overnight, so they allowed her to stay because they also knew that it wouldn't take long for him to pass. And so my mom was actually staying with him. And so she was talking with him all night and holding his hands. And then she fell asleep for, as she thinks, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. And that's the time when he actually then passed over. So for her, it was really, he was waiting for her to fall asleep before he took his last breath. And that's kind of stuck with me when my mom passed away, that I felt maybe if in case she wanted to be alone as well. And this is why we gave her the space. Because you never know what they want. They might not want someone to be around. But when she then was still there with us, when we came back, then we knew she wanted us to be with her.
But we stay with that, once the body is passed away, I put in a coffin, we stay with the body until it's cremated, we have prayers the whole night. I think even the Catholics do that too. They have wakes, they call it wakes, yeah, they have prayers. Buddhists too, we have prayers, and then of course we have our ceremonies, and then we just follow the body to then we just go to crematorium grounds.
But it's also different in, I'm raised Catholic, so I have a Catholic background, but then I've spent a lot of time also in Ireland, which of course is mainly Catholic, but the traditions over there are completely different than what we had in Germany, for example. In Ireland, if somebody actually dies, it doesn't matter if they die in the hospital or they die at home. The person is brought back to the home where they, if in any shape or form possible. And then there is what's called a wake. And then everyone can come in, and the neighbors come in and they bring the food, and then then it's similar to what you just said. There's always someone with the person that has passed, and then they are actually walking from the house then to the graveyard or for the service. And so the burial is actually then, it's really then they have the wake, when they after the wake they actually have this procession going through the little towns or whatever, where they then go from home right to the graveyard. And that's so different than what I had ever seen in Germany. There's nothing like that. There are no processions or anything, or even having the body at home for any period of time.
That's something I wanted to mention for those, particularly in America. My brother-in-law had lung cancer and was going through the final process, and his wife did not want hospice involved. She did not want strangers in her house. She was very adamant, no hospice. And as a result of that, in Texas, when someone dies at home and hospice is not involved, it becomes a crime scene. So the police come in and took everybody's information and IDs and ran background checks and all of that stuff. And that's a terrible process when you've just lost someone you love. And there was a lot of anger and agitation and that stuff going on. So that's one of the real advantages of bringing hospice in, is that if somebody does want to die at home, then there's no questions asked. It's all, a process that's
Carol, I know I've been in a situation where we had a good friend who lived alone, had a massive heart attack, and died alone in her home. And it was a neighbor who called us and said, "We haven't seen her in a few days, and we think something's wrong." And being that we had a key to the house, we went over and found her. And you do have to call the police at that point. But as soon as they arrived and we got her family doctor on the phone, who attested to the fact that she had a severe heart condition and that it was, 99% sure that she had had a heart attack, the police they were like, "Okay, we're good." No interrogation, no nothing. It was like, so for your brother-in-law, the fact that he had lung cancer, it should have been just nothing should have had to take place. So that's just another weird Texas thing, Carol. I'm sorry, but that's Texas.
Yes. Let's see if we can make some drama out of this where it's already.
Texas did another weird one today. that I think it was Texas, they won't allow abortion for ectopic pregnancies.
I
I
got no
mean,
word.
what does that mean? The woman should die when it bursts? It's another crazy one. Sorry, Texas bashing, but I love the house that Carol's in. That little corner of Texas is good.
Well, we try to keep things good over here. Any other comments, questions? Robin, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'd like to say, and it's interesting that this is a topic because it has been a topic with different friends and people who passed well and various things. And one of the things that I have recognized is that having some process in place, some conversation, like I have a lot of friends who do home care of elderly, and some do hospice, and when they can help these elders when they're, because they're seeing entities in the room and stuff, and when they acknowledge and they actually show them pictures of the orbs of what you look like when, and they're like, yeah, that's what I see, then it helps them, know that they're going to a safe and kind place. And one of the people that I know, Mihal Ludwith, who some of you might have seen on the What the Bleep movie, he used to be an advisor to the Pope. And so he's got a lot of different religious background knowledge. And he says there are more earthbound people now on Earth than at any other time in history, because people don't know what to do when they die. There's no Book of the Dead in our current culture. And so people just wind up, if they really didn't think they were anything besides their body, particularly, then they just hang around earthbound and not really knowing what to do. And so it can be really helpful to, if you know people who are passing, to let them know that they can move on and dream a new dream, come back in a different body, have a new experience, and so many people don't have that concept. And that's one of the reasons I think there is so much fear around death, because they don't know what's going to happen to them when they die.
Right.
I think it's also because a lot of people are dying alone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Especially
of
in
people are
COVID.
dying alone.
Yeah.
Without anyone to help them around.
Another thing that can be really helpful is I know friends who have done this with their parents, to talk about what is the person who's passing, what sign are they going to give when they have safely reached the other side, and they get the they get the cues that, okay, mom made it over to the other side, and here she's turning the light on and off, or she's, some made the given sign and everything's good.
Having the conversation about it is difficult, but it can make it so much easier on everybody if you know somebody, what's important to them. And my mother could not do it for my grandmother. She could not do it. But it wasn't a problem for me. So I took my grandmother to shop for her casket because she wanted it fancy. I'm like, okay, we'll do fancy. And we picked out the dress and the hymns, and we went through the whole process, and she felt good about it. And she said, and I'm going to pay cash for my burial plot. I'm like, okay. That was important to her, but not everybody can do it, but to me, it's kind of project planning, it's going to happen to all of us. So try to have those. I have all my papers in a particular place. My kids all know where they are. I have all that stuff written down to try to take as much of the guesswork out of that as possible. And I don't know if anybody has seen.
Yeah, my mom also, she get I think of 5 years or 6 years ago, she wrote it up. Please follow these instructions, because she instructed what sari she wanted to wear, what jewelry she wanted to have on her when she was in the box.
Yeah.
Say, okay. And what ceremony she wanted. And so we followed it to the T.
You think it made it easier?
Yeah, because otherwise you'd be like, no, actually it wouldn't, because I knew she was going to die just a month before. So I took everything and kept aside. So it made it easier because I did it because she wanted certain things, her sari and this and that. So it made it a little bit more pleasant.
So one of the topics of your own death that I heard Stephen Covey speak in person once, and he said, go through a visualization of seeing your essence at your funeral. And there's 3 people sitting on the front row. One is a relative, one is your friend, and one is a coworker. And what do you want them to say about you? What legacy do you want to leave that they talk about? And we kind of laughed about wow, she kept her house clean. Those beds were made, those dishes were done. That's that's not the thing that you want to be remembered for. And I had a friend recently pass of heart failure at 62, and she held my hand and she said, Carol, we had some fun, didn't we? And to me, that was just the greatest blessing she could have given me, that we had some fun. And we went to the Kerrville Music Festival for years. She played the guitar and sang, and we did contra dancing. We went to several different things. We were coworkers, but we really had fun, and as friends. So, those are the things you want people to say about you. Wow, we had fun together, and we were there for each other. And it's an interesting exercise to go through when you think about what is it that you want to be remembered for.
It should be a celebration.
Yeah,
I think,
celebration of life. Yeah.
of that person's life, acknowledging, and when people do get up and share stories and their funny stories, it just, it lightens things. It feels, the sadness, we're sad because we can't physically see them anymore. But, if we really knew and believed in that transition process, we really should be joyful that they are now through that phase. They're no longer confined in the body, and they're in that beautiful well, I don't know, because I've never, well, I'm sure I must have done in previous lives, don't remember, but my understanding is that crossing over, so to speak, is the most beautiful thing. We can't even imagine in the physical, but yeah, a beautiful transition for them.
Right.
So, and cultures do celebrate, and they, I mean, there's even a tribe in the Amazon that they will not live past the age of 30, because they actually take a substance or a bark, plant material, so for them to be poisoned and die, but they live for that transition, that's their whole life. There's no old people in this tribe. So it's to the age of 30, and they can't wait to turn 30. So it really is about our perception of what death is. For them, they can't wait to get there, and in a way, that's a wonderful thing, because there's no fear involved, and we've sort of been brought up to fear fear it.
Jana, you've been quiet. What's your take?
I always have a lot to say, don't I? When you were saying that people were afraid, I guess I came across a lady who had helped her son transition. He had cancer, and she helped him transition, and they studied all different types of beliefs about death and what will happen when you die. And she would go around and speak about this. And so I was probably 14 or something, and I heard this lady speak about death. And so at that moment, I've had an interest with what happens on the other side. And so and understanding, and I know that I haven't studied it all, but I've always had this feeling of comfort, on the other side. Now, when my dad passed, yeah, of course. I think, Sharmini was talking about, it's easy when everything is in order because you don't have to think about it. And my dad's things weren't in order, and it was very difficult to be able to make those decisions because he hadn't. But my mom, she's still alive, and but she has everything in order. Yeah, so I was really surprised to hear that people were afraid of death, because I see it as being a very beautiful thing. And I've read many books on afterlife, and for me, I have all my affairs in order as well. So my daughter knows what celebration to do, and how to. I said, I just want everybody to have fun and laugh and dance and just have a great time. So that's what it's all about for me. I think it's so interesting how you were able to connect the doshas with the process. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope it's helpful. And again, because we are studying Siddha Veda, Siddha Veda's history is so rich with helping people from all backgrounds and all situations. I think, it should be part of our process to think about that and to educate ourselves wherever we can to know what to expect. And to me, that's I just want to know what to expect. It makes it easier. Ralph.
I've been debating about whether to say this or not, but I met a lady at the temple about 6 years ago, and her daughter told me that she was a D-log. A D-log in Tibetan Buddhism is a person that dies but they call them returners from death. It seems like they are dead, but the tradition is they don't remove the body for 3 days because the heart chakra is still warm. So when she said that her mom was a D-log and that she died and she was with her guide guided her through the process, and she saw friends, family. She was told that she was supposed to die at the age of 29. At the time, she was 25. She saw how many more children she was going to have. Okay. And she came back into the body. It took, she came back, I think, the second day before the third day, because the third day, that was going to be it. She came back. She had the kids that she saw that she was going to have. I think she's like in her late 80s right now, but she has dementia. So when Anna told me that story about her mom, I had a discussion with my buddy from Tibet and his sister. And they again, I have a book that talks about D-logs. They had a book in their store, in their shop. And this is how these people, they go on the other side and they come back. Some of them, their whole lives are transformed. Let's just say if they've been living a decadent lifestyle, when they go on that other side, they come back and they become very saintly, very spiritual. And they assist other people who are friends or relatives of relatives that they have seen on that other side, to conduct, influence them to conduct their lives in a righteous way. So it was interesting talking to someone that has actually have had that experience. To know what it's like to be on that other side and come back and talk about it.
Beautiful.
Like my mother, she said, my mother also had a near-death experience, like with her first child. She lost the child in the womb, so they had to operate and take the baby out. So she said she laughed. She went into a light and she saw people there, and the guides were telling her, no, this is not your right time to go, you have still got things to fulfill. And she was suddenly thrown back in her body, and she said, I didn't want to come back, she was saying. And so after that, she had three of us, yeah, after that.
Yeah, I've met a man that had the same experience. He had leukemia. And he had terminal leukemia. And he said that during the night, these beautiful, tall, white lights gathered around his bed to usher him to the other side. And he was ready to go. And his voice says, pushed his soul back into his body. He says, it's not time for you to go yet. You're going to be healed. You have much work to do. That was 6 years before he passed away.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah, my dad was the same. He had some bleeding ulcers, and he had some affairs to take care of, so he was in a business setting, and he collapsed. And the paramedics came, and he said that he was hovering above his body and could see everybody working on him, and he saw the paramedics putting the defibrillators on him that shocked him, and he had the choice to either go or to stay, and he chose to stay, so he came back into his body. So I guess maybe that was part of the reason why I had such a fascination with death at a young age.
For sure. Ronnie, would you like to comment or have anything you'd like to say?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Ronnie.
You know, it's so interesting to me. I'm so glad I came on this call. Thank everybody who contributed, because it's fascinating to me, though, the whole entire time. I'm so happy to be here, but I will share something that did happen to me, and I've never heard it that happened to anyone else. And so thank you for asking me. I was just going to sit in the corner here, but like I said, I've enjoyed it. So I lost a child very, very soon after birth. And at the time, this was my third child. And I went into this very, 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 very deep depression. And my only thought was, I have to be a terrible mother because God chose to take my child away. And of course I had Heidi and Billy then, and I thought I was a really good mother, and I was very proud of all of the things I had done. And all of a sudden I was in this place of, oh my God, what did I do? Or what could I have done or what should I have done? And I went into this deep depression for 2 years. And I didn't know you could cry that much, that long, that often. I couldn't get out of it. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed at work. I had a business. I was a mess. So fast forward, I kept thinking there's got to be a way, there's got to be something, there's got to be more to this story. And so I'll leave out all the middle part. And I ended up going to a big conference in San Francisco, and I saw Doreen Virtue. And I don't know if any of you know who she is, but she was known as the Angel Lady for a long time, and a psychic and very popular, wrote a lot of books. And there was 600 in this auditorium, and she came out on stage and she said, I was going to introduce myself and speak, but right now there's something very important that I have to do, and I'm going to put you all in a meditation, and you're going to meet somebody from the other side. Don't know who it is, but everybody's going to meet someone. And so I was sitting there thinking, yeah, there's 600 people in here and everybody's going to be in a meditation. I don't think so. Very doubtful about the process, but why not try? So I went into this meditation and it was absolutely magical. And I looked up and my father and my son, Christopher, were walking together towards me. And I knew it was Christopher. He was not the baby, though. He was of the age he would have been had he been living. And it was one of the most alive, real things that have ever happened to me. And he looked and he said, Mom, I finally get to tell you what's going on. And I was just stunned. He said, I had to come on this side so I could help you a lot more from here. He says, I'm always with you. You're never alone. And he said, just know that. And he said, share this with other people because they don't know that we have that kind of connection. And sometimes it's much more important to be on the other side. So it life-changing for me, totally life-changing.
Wow.
And
That's
I don't
so
know
incredible.
why I seem to attract a lot of people that have mothers that have lost a child, and I can tell that story, and it's a life-changing story for them.
So I hope it's okay to mention this, but you had some success in finding people who were deceased. Do you think your son helped you in solving some of those cases where you were using intuitive skills?
Wow, that's really amazing, Carol. I didn't know you knew that part about me, but probably so. And I never even made that connection. It was really, so I'll just add another part to that was pretty amazing. For 5 years, I worked with 5 psychics and we found lost bodies or dead children or all kinds of things. I did that for a long time and I was never afraid. I was never worried. I just wanted to be helpful. And then Heidi had Brad and he was only 2 years old. And one night at the dinner table, she said, Mom, how can you keep doing this? And I said, what? And she says, you work with people you look for people that murder people. Don't you think you could put your grandson in harm's way? I had never thought about that one time. I was just helping. And so I quit that day and never did it again. But it was funny how fearless I was in retrospect, looking back at all of it. I was totally fearless. And we were in some pretty heavy duty cases.
Yeah, it's quite a large number of successes, as I recall.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was an amazing, because we could bring finality to people and closure and walk the talk with them. So it was, I felt blessed to do it, and I was working with some great people, some fabulous people. So yeah, I had totally kind of forgotten about that, Carol. That was a number of years ago.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so grateful for your sharing that, Ronnie.
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Yeah. It's really nice though. I mean, it's such a such an awesome feeling to see my father and my son together.
Mhm.
And to know I've got that kind of support. It's just like, I mean, it's wow, it's pretty spectacular.
So, Laurette, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some thoughts about. I feel a bit nervous. Anyways, I want to share some thoughts about like that I'm struggling sometimes with the question. Yeah, like how do you want to be remembered whenever you're dying? Because first, whenever I thought about that question, I thought, oh, that's actually great to think about because it motivates you to, yeah, get everything out of your life and to like reach your goals and everything. And now I'm a little bit like doubting about it sometimes, that I feel like how much is it actually like a kind of ego question, and how much is it actually like kind of blocking you of getting freed from some kind of duality, that you are actually already like important just the way you are, and that you already one and whole, so that you don't need that kind of, yeah, self-importance. How do you want to be remembered? I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
just wanted to share these thoughts.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in the Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer, he asked the question, if you knew you only had 6 months left to live, who would you be? What would you want? What would be the things that would be important? And I think that's another way of asking that same question is, if you had all the money in the world, you had millions of dollars, and you had, there was no fear, what would you do? Who would you be? And I think that's that same thing. And, there's a lot to that ego and fear. Once those are out of the equation, then you're trying to get to your God-given purpose, I think, is what we're all trying to get to, is why am I here? What's my mission? What am I supposed to be doing? So it's a
Yeah,
good
so you
question.
mean that then it's more about indeed getting to your purpose in this life, rather than how do you specifically want to be remembered, because that's more like of an ego thing, right?
Well, it's so interesting that you bring that up, because this week I've been, studying about, believing about self and things, and in the work that I was studying, they were talking about how whatever we feel about ourselves, it projects to other people. And so they say, if you don't have a good feeling about yourself, then it will be seen, maybe not right away, but eventually it will. And so as I hear that statement, I think, well, how do I want to be in life? Rather than how do I want to be remembered, just how do I want to be in life? And that will be reflected in the way that I live. So that basically takes the ego out of it and brings it down into soul purpose and the context of, who, what is the, because we can be whatever we want. Yes, there's a true essence of who we truly are at the core, but we can choose to direct our lives in the way that we desire through being kind, or, if you want to do the opposite, rude, or, funny or sarcastic, whatever you want. But in essence, we basically teach. It's not teach, it's more of a reflection. People can read the reflection of of what you are feeling and thinking and desiring of self. So that's a beautiful reflection. I love that. I see Reagan on the call. Hello, Reagan.
Raven?
Oh, Raven, I'm sorry. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Can you unmute?
I just found the text that you sent me yesterday, so I just joined you a minute ago.
I'm so grateful.
I hope it won't be rude if I sit here and eat mung bean soup while we're
You won't be the
together.
first or the last, for sure.
Raven, can I introduce you to everybody? So I had the pleasure of being in a breakout room with Raven on one Sunday call and got to kind of connect with her a little bit. We've been exchanging texts back and forth a little bit, and she is new to the community. She's only been on the calls three times, I believe. And so I thought she probably doesn't know about some of these other calls. And so I sent her a text just a little bit ago. So I'm so grateful that you came on. She's just adorable. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to find out about, because unless you're on WhatsApp or Facebook or things like that. So yeah. Anyway, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So before I forget, I want to remind everybody that we have a big day tomorrow. The immersion program is kicking off. That's a year-long program, and that starts tomorrow. Cornelia, you're going to have to help me with times here because I've lost my mind.
That's okay. The people with the immersion, they know what time it starts. They've got their
10
emails.
o'clock, I believe, is the time for that. And then we have a special thing from Gary, Graceful Passages with Hope Fitzgerald, and that's at 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's a 2.5-hour workshop. It's free. There is a link to register for. Connie, do you have that handy? We could stick that link down.
I didn't expect that we needed that. I don't have it. I
can pull that up. I've got it.
You got
No
it?
worries. I do.
Yay, China. Yeah, so those two big things are happening tomorrow.
And this really ties into what we were talking about tonight. Graceful Passages is all about dealing with grief and emotions, and so it might be really, really interesting to go through that. I'm looking really forward to that, and so maybe you want to join us tomorrow.
And if anybody is not on Asian,
Immersion is 10 o'clock Pacific time.
10 o'clock Pacific time for
It's 10
immersion.
o'clock Pacific time. 8 o'clock is the 3-year course.
And that's tomorrow too.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So 8 o'clock Pacific is the 3-year, and 10 o'clock is the immersion, and 1 o'clock is Gary.
It's Gary, right?
Okay.
Exactly. And that's all Pacific time.
And if you were expecting movie night, it's canceled. We're going to put that off for another day. We don't have 3 other things going on. It's just too much. Too much. Other questions, other comments?
Yeah, what just came up for me as well, as was mentioned before, that what Ronnie was talking about her son, that I had a different kind of experience, but still a message from my dad. After he had passed away, about a year later, I met somebody,
but still rent your electric.
Sorry.
And this person, she said, I have to talk to you. And I was just about to move to another city. And she said, but before you go, I have to talk to you. And so we met, and she said, yeah, I have for weeks now. Your dad is actually coming to me, and he wants, he has a message for you. And she told me that, first of all, that he was in a very good place, and that he, similar to what Ronnie, you were saying, that he's now in a place where he could help me and my sister and my mom much better from where he is right now than that he could ever have done in his lifetime. And just to give you a bit of a very quick background, my father was an alcoholic for most of his life, and he then at some point went to rehab, and for the last 20 years of his life he was sober, but of course his illness definitely had overshadowed our family life, particularly us children when we were growing up. And to get this message that he was actually helping us from the other side. And one of the things that he also wanted us to know, that when he was diagnosed with cancer and the doctor told him that there was no hope for him, he got this message on a Friday evening at 6 o'clock, and he passed away on Sunday morning at 4. So he had made up his mind to go the moment he had no hope. And he said because of that, that he had no fear of dying, he is now helping other people that are stuck or don't want to leave to transition. So he has a very important role to fulfill where he is right now.
Wow, that's incredible.
That was such an amazing message that we got. And what was really interesting as well, that his this woman, she was telling me that there was another woman with him, and that he was saying about her that she is still stuck between the worlds, that she hadn't completely transitioned. And it turned out that it was actually my grandmother, my mother's mother, who had committed suicide. And as a Catholic, that was a very against everything that she had been brought up. So she had actually committed a sin that couldn't be resolved, and she was still feeling guilty, but she also had the message that she didn't see any way out, and that it was her only way to kind of leave everything behind. She just couldn't go on, but she was still in a place where she couldn't go in either direction. So she was still in a very bad place, but she was at least with my dad.
Wow.
So she would have been in purgatory, Cornelia.
Yeah.
She would, because she would have believed in purgatory.
Yeah.
She would have been in that state of purgatory.
But I felt really good that my dad was with her. And of course, with the hope that he would help her to transition really over with the work he was doing over there. And for me, that was just an incredible message to receive. And I definitely know that it was my dad and not something that she had come up with, because she gave us a very clear indication that that it was my dad who was speaking. And
very comforting for you.
Yeah, it was a beautiful message also for my mom, who was really, first of all, she felt really guilty about her mother because she wasn't at home when she left our house and to commit suicide. And then also that she really missed my dad. And so for her to get a message like that was really something beautiful. And he had a very specific message for her. And the message was that I had no idea what to make out of it, was that he said to this woman that he knows about the ring. And for me, that didn't make sense at all. So I passed that message on to my mom, and when she when I told her, she actually started to cry, and I said, what's that all about? And and she told me that just a couple of weeks or a few weeks before, she had actually her fingers had swollen over the years, and so she had to cut off actually her wedding ring years ago. And just a few weeks before, she had actually found my dad's ring. And because that ring was bigger, it fit her, so she was wearing his ring. And no one knew. The only person that knew it was my mom. And she lived in Germany and I lived in England at the time. And to get this message was so beautiful.
Such great confirmation.
And such a confirmation that he was really around us all the time. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's also very comforting to know that they are really paying attention to what we are doing here, that they know what's going on.
I'm just going to recap a little bit. We were talking tonight about there's a process that we go through as humans when we are transitioning out of our shirts to our ethereal shirt. And it follows the elements from earth to water, water to fire, fire to air, air to space. And that if you can see the process and where it is in those stages, it can help know how to comfort people. And as Siddhaveda students, we know that we could be called on to help people go through the process, or to be with a family member or friend or whatever. It's part of living, and to try to be aware, and then to use our knowledge of doshas to help comfort people. Someone who's vata would like to have their hand held or a foot massage. Someone who's pitta might really enjoy some stimulating music that's has lyrics and a story to it. And someone who's kapha, they're luxurious, thick hair, they might like to have their hair combed or their nails done, or maybe want you to take notes on the things that from a structure standpoint that they'd like to see done. So we're using our education in doshas, our understanding of the elements, and putting those together to see if we can make ourselves more aware of how we can be of service to people who are going through a final process or close to it. Sometimes there's a miraculous healing. We've talked about that too tonight. So I'm sorry some of you got here. We've been at this since 7, and I'm sorry that you missed most of it. It is recorded, but as all good things must come to an end. I know that it's really late for some of our folks on the East Coast, and Liz has her day to go about in New Zealand, and Sharmini has her day to go about is it Singapore now? Yes, Singapore. And Marat, are you in the Netherlands?
No, I'm still in Australia, and I'm living back in my camper van at the moment. But I'm going back to the Netherlands in about 2 months. So
2
I'm just
months,
enjoying
okay.
my time in my little house on wheels for 2 more months.
Excellent, excellent. In your tiny house.
Yeah.
That's great. And we didn't hear from Andrea. Did you want to say anything before we sign off, Andrea? No? You're muted.
Okay, I tried to find the link and I couldn't find the link anywhere, so that's what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The link never changes, so just somewhere put it in somewhere that you can always remember and always click on it.
Oh.
Oh, thanks.
So perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Donna, glad you could join us, and Mary, Chandran, I'm so glad that you came. I'm sorry that we have run out of time, and Ronnie, your story was so touching, so moving. I'm so grateful that you came to share. Ralph Brown, you're one of my favorite people to show up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love your Buddhist wisdom, your insights that you bring to the table. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. So namaskar. Thanks for coming. And I hope next week we have a special treat. We have Miss Liz Mulligan in the house, who's going to be doing a special. Liz, just give us a brief overview of what you're going to be presenting next week.
Yeah, I thought the topic of the mind and Ayurvedic approach, or wisdom of the mind, and just go through some of the aspects. We'll do a quiz as well, so just to bring in something a little bit different. So grab a notepad and a pen the next Saturday. Not a lot, it's just a short quiz. So and yeah, I think it's a huge topic, but it's just something we can just cover a little bit on, and then can have open discussions about. So yeah.
And safe
Uh,
travels, Charmony. We want to make sure that you know that we'll be thinking of you, wishing you well, and living vicariously through you. That we for those of us who can't go, hoping you're put lots of pictures out there for us.
Will do, will do.
Awesome. Any last words from anybody?
I love you and I'm with you.
I love you and I'm with
Love
you.
you and I'm with you.
I love
Love
me.
you and I'm
Love
with
I
you
love
and
you.
with you.
Love you and I'm with you.
Thank you for the amazing conversation.
Thank you,
It's a
Robin.
great call.
Thank
Great
you,
call.
Robin.